Okay, well, it looks like people are starting to come in. So, just to start off, I'm Emily. I will be the moderator of this session. Welcome to the last session, everybody. Thank you all for being a part of this, and I'm so excited to be a part of the conversation and learn so much from all of you. Again, I'm Emily. I'm in Los Angeles right now, but I'm originally from Oahu, Hawaii. More specifically Mililani, but I basically grew up in like Waipahu. That's where all my family is. I'm studying journalism right now. So I'm super excited to get this started. If all of you want to introduce yourselves too, we can start with Addison, and then go to TJ, Debra, and then Lalaine.
Awesome. Just checking, making sure everyone can hear me good. Emily, you can hear me good?
Yes.
Perfect. Fantastic. I am Dr. Addison Bulosan, born and raised on Kauai, tiny island, in Lihui. Moved away home and went to college and returned back home about 6 years ago. I have a practice here. I'm a practicing chiropractor on Kauai and on Maui, and I have several others. Hi, everybody.
Aloha, I'm TJ. Thanks, Addison. Thank you, everybody, for joining us. Well, I think you've all read my bio. I live in Wahiawa now, but I grew up along Oahu's North Shore, and I am the oldest granddaughter on my Filipino side. And I look forward to participating in this. I think this is a great opportunity for like minds to come together and share what we love to do. So thank you, everyone.
Yes. Aloha, everybody. My name is Debra Arellano. I'm joining from Lahaina, Maui. I grew up here, so I was born to immigrant parents from La Union, San Fernando, and Ilocos Norte, Marcos Ilocos Norte. So I grew up going to the public schools here, which is school at UH Manoa and American University in Washington, D.C. Now I'm back home on Maui. I'm teaching at Lahaina Luna High School, and I'm also teaching Ilocano language at Maui College.
Hi everyone, I'm Lalaine Ignao. I am originally from Seattle, Washington, and I moved to Waipahu, to Oahu, almost 5 years ago, just because I want to be somewhere where there's a bigger Filipino community. I felt like in my hometown, which is an hour south of Seattle, I felt like I was out of place, and I want to be somewhere where I saw more of me, more Filipinos. I am now a multimedia journalist, so I'm a reporter for Balitang America on the I'm a radio DJ on KBI, and then I'm also a contributing writer for the Phil Am Courier. I graduated from Seattle University in 2015, and then also received my master's in new media journalism from Full Sail University in 2018. I'm also the founder of Social Connects The Market, which is essentially a quarterly market that showcases Filipino small business owners and creators here in Hawaii.
Amazing. Thank you all so much for introducing yourselves. So just to get started, the first question that I have for you guys is, how do you establish yourself into a community? And like, how do you meet people, and like, how do you keep that network?
Well, I guess I will jump in and be first. So, as you all know, I did grow up on the North Shore, and I moved to Wahiawa when in 1981 when my parents got divorced, and I think being there in the community, attending community events, volunteering and helping where I can, whether it be at the neighborhood board level or at a food drive or organizing ourselves to pick up trash and cleaning up our neighborhood is one way that I was able to get involved in the community and stay involved in the community and slowly learn what our community needed and what our Filipino community needed because there is such, I know I've been looking at the listening and participating in the other teleconferences that were earlier, and I'm seeing we all have that in us. We want to be part of our community, and we also want to help our Filipino community become more successful, more comfortable, and more available in our communities. And I think the only way that you can do that is by jumping in, boots on the ground, and getting out there to see what's needed, and then to see how you can take your skills to bring the community together and be a resource for the community, whether it be for the Filipino community or your community as a whole.
Amazing. Yes, I completely agree with that. Anybody else would like to add on to that?
For me, from my experience, that thinking back, it started in high school. Me identifying that I have a skill or time or this passion to want to help got me involved. Or in college, when I was actually looking for identity, at UH Manoa as a neighbor island girl looking for community. I joined this organization called Filipino student organization that was looking to, they're very active about or very passionate about issues that affect the Filipino community. And so it was from there that I came across mentors who introduced me to different networks. So it was about following that passion, following that curiosity that got me to know all the wonderful people I know now. And I think as an educator coming from, if I had to answer your question, like if there's a student out there that was listening, how to get involved, how to establish yourself, I would say it starts at home and it starts at school. Yeah. If you go to church, stay active in that youth ministry. If you're in a club, you're in the CTE pathway, keep that passion, that desire for learning, that curiosity. And teachers, there are teachers and mentors, there are coaches that recognize that and they see potential, and they're in the business of growing students, and empowering youth. So it would be in a matter of time that they'll recognize that, and they'll pass you on to the next opportunity, and then from there, I'm sure all of us in this panel have started from a small, like Manang TJ, like a small group or a mentor. Someone has mentored us and passed us on to an opportunity which only grew, right, to bigger networks. So I guess that's how I came to be, and that's what my advice would be for the youth.
Absolutely. Addison, Lalaine?
Lalaine, you can go first.
Okay.
How very diplomatic of you, Addison.
For me, moving to Oahu, my mom originally moved here from the Philippines, but she left shortly after, I want to say like 6 years after. So she never really had the resources to help me really get involved into the Filipino community. Admittedly, my relatives who are here, they're not active in the Filipino community. So for me, it was really just trying to find someone to let me in. I didn't know how, but thankfully my boyfriend's teacher at the time when I first moved here, she was very much so involved. And I just wanted to get involved, and I asked her, I'm a journalist, I really want to help and I want to be involved. This is the reason why I moved to Oahu. How can you help me? And I was super depressed at the time. I thought I made the wrong move to come here. But thankfully to her, I made my way. And with my journalism, I really just use that as a skill to just continue networking. I'm someone who really wants to help bring a voice to the Filipinos, to bring those who don't have a voice for themselves, and just keep on connecting with them. They're developing relationships with the people I can connect with and talk to. And with Pusong Filipino sa Market, I do the same thing. When I first started, I was just stalking people, to be honest, on Instagram, asking, hey, are you Filipino? I really want to start this event, and I don't want to seem rude, but I want to know if you're Filipino or not. I want you to be a part of this project I'm going into. So it's always just trying to make connections, build relationships, because you never know. where that could lead.
Has gotten involved in different ways. Lalaine, that's a great way to start. And I think for me, it starts with wanting to be involved, right? If you're looking to search and be part of the community, you have to want to be part of the community. I luckily had grandparents and parents that were heavily involved in the community, especially the Filipino community. They were the presidents and served on the things of like the Kauai Filipino Community Council. On Kauai, it's a lot smaller than Maui and Oahu, and maybe for a lot of you who are watching, my town is only about 12,000 people. The island is about 70,000. So I know that's like the size of some schools, right? So for me, it was part of my life. All of elementary school, my parents volunteered. They volunteered with a lot of different organizations. So it was kind of inbred or part of my learning experience. So when I moved back home, naturally, I wanted to get involved with the things that gave so much to me in my childhood. And so I committed to connecting with those folks and serving on those boards and serving the community in that way, because I just wanted to keep the circle or complete the circle, right? You get so much from the community, you want to give back, right? So I think that's where it really starts when you think about wanting to connect with the communities. First, you have to recognize that you get so much from the community, and then second, you don't want to give back. And once you get involved with that process, then you realize how rewarding it is, because as much as you're giving, you're definitely getting.
Yes, absolutely. I completely agree with what all of you have said. Looking back at my own experience too, like growing up mainly in Waipahu with like a large Filipino community, that's where all my family lives on my mom and dad's side, multi-generational living situations where all the family just like at my grandma's house, so I'm constantly with them. Just wanting to give back to that community and like uplift them. I'm just so curious, can you talk about a little bit of the work that you guys specifically do in like curating and cultivating like Filipino community and culture?
Something with this one. So I just finished my as a candidate for county council here on Kauai, and unsuccessful, unfortunately. Missed it by one seat, a few thousand. In that process of campaigning, we committed to doing always do in our community, which is just help each other out. And so through the nonprofits, we committed through the pandemic to find out ways of how we can support our community and find out the needs. And it was very basic, the three basic needs that people are needing in these times. And so this year we really focused on helping the food bank, and then help organize and supporting kupunas, because a lot of kupunas wouldn't have access to certain things because they want to remain safe and stay at home. And then the last thing was focusing on my generation, the younger generation, to figure out how to help our community adapt to the times. Our community, as in our community as millennials and Gen X and the younger community, we're much more savvy with technology. We're okay with being online. We like being on video, TikTok, Instagram, Facebook. And so what we did as a community, as our younger folks, we tried to leverage a lot of organizations and supported them in their tech transformation. And we helped innovate some of these companies, local businesses. And so we tried to figure out as many ways that we could help our community adapt in these crazy times. And so looking forward, the same things. We're looking at continuing to support our community through these different challenges. And probably the last most important thing was with other people like us. So this is why this forum has been amazing, and to see 29 viewers here and the panels that have come through. To connect like this is the most important thing we can do, and the best help we could ever give is just showing that we are together in this process and that we have other people that we can lean on. I hope, being in this process, I hope that through this process of all the years, you are able to connect with all of us, and know that you're part of the community and we're able to support you. So make sure you put in the chat if you have any questions too.
That is so well said, Addison. And I'm going to jump in right behind you too, because I also ran unsuccessfully, lost by a few thousand votes to Senator Donovan Dela Cruz. I ran for the Senate seat in the Wahiawa area. And I've always been a community-minded person, but I think running for office this time during this pandemic really honed my skills to be able to communicate a little better with our community, not just at the community level, but with the individual families and individuals that came to me or came to someone on my campaign team during that time. So through that, I've just kind of expanded on what I've done for a long time as a community organizer. Because like I've said before, time and time again, if people don't know where to find the resources that they need, whether it be housing, social services, medical assistance, whatever it may be, if they don't know where to look, how are they going to look? If they don't know what to ask, or they don't know where to ask, how will they ask? And so I've pretty much opened myself to the community and have recently formed an organization on our way to becoming a nonprofit called the Radical Hale. So through this pandemic, and also again through the election process, we found out that there are a lot of houseless persons. We call them our guests, who have fallen through the cracks, whether it be with other social services or other social agencies that have provided this type of services for so long. But as we met these guests on the street, we found out that they were falling through the cracks, that these organizations that have been around for a long time are overwhelmed because the pandemic has 100 times over made the situation harder for those who need the services, for our guests who need services, whether it be clothes, slippers, or something as simple as applying for medical insurance or financial assistance. Those things, for some of us, we take it for granted because we know how to go online. We know how to pick up the phone and call and ask for help. But there are a lot of people, a lot of guests in our community who don't. And so by working with not only with my partner in the Radical Hale, but also working with the representative in our area, Ms. Amy Peruso, being able to work with them and take those resources out on the street and talk to these people. We recently put a gentleman that has been on the street in a wheelchair for a number of years. We, as recently as last week, Thursday, got him into a medical facility where he is on his way to attaining services that will help him through through the issues that he deals with every day. He's been robbed, he's been hijacked, he's been assaulted. But for him now, when we met him, we were fortunate because he was at that time and point in his life when he said, I'm done. I need to be safe. I'm tired. I'm almost 60. I think he said he's almost 62, but he wanted to be safe. He wanted to be able to take a shower every day. He wanted to be able to lay in a bed at night and go to sleep. And so I've done that, and I'm going to continue to do that with anybody and anybody out there who would like to learn how to do that or be part of our team, be part of our community. I'm happy to share with you what we've done, the paths that we've created, but most importantly, how we've learned to be sympathetic and show compassion and aloha to those who have less than who are entitled to more than what they have because they are in our community in the state of Hawaii where the services are bountiful. So we're going to help them find peace and comfort through all of this and beyond after the pandemic passes. So that's what I'd like to do, and that's what I'm going to continue to do. Sorry I took so long.
It's amazing. The work that you guys are all doing is so amazing. Debra, Lalaine, want to speak a little bit more like the work that you guys do as well?
Yeah. Is my mic on?
Yes.
So I guess in my role as an educator so far, I've always seen myself as the link between my students and the community, even especially in the beginning when I first moved back to Maui and I didn't have roots. I had to reestablish roots, and so I made it a point to invite community, find little ways to invite community, and for the students to be exposed to our leaders in the Filipino community. And so when we did that was we semester drama fest, like the Ilocano program has every semester, or Sound Fest. We'd invite them as judges. We'd invite them as guest speakers, or whenever they have events in the community, Maui Film Chamber of Commerce, I'd always, have them email us whatever's going on. If you want the students to come, if you want the students to come set up, to come clean up, if you want to mentor any, I just, always made sure that it was clear that they could come here and our students could also go to them, because our students were doing, I was also the advisor for the Kabatak Club, the Filipino student organization at Maui College, and they were doing like 20 community service projects in a semester. And so I really they had the time, they had this desire to want to be out there and be involved. So I kind of took advantage of that. And same thing with my Ilocano classes. If there was even a new Filipino film showing at the movie theater, or there was a conference like this online, something that they could take part of that was online, then I asked them to take part of that and just do a quick write-up, every little bit of exposure so they could see people like people on this panel. And then now at, I guess at Lahaina Luna, where I'm in the alternative education program, and we're INA-based and we're internship-based, we're CTE internship-based. So we depend a lot on our involvement with the community. So we have a lot of mentors in different fields. We have a lot of professionals come up. They can teach the kids how to cook something from the restaurant industry, or they can come and talk to them about soil or hydroponics or whatnot, And so I've always made myself, whatever teaching position I was in, or education position, I always made sure that the students had some kind of link to the community, and the community were always knew they were welcome in our classroom.
Yeah, with me, I really tried to use my master's program as a way to connect with other people. At the time, I was still relatively new to the community, but I was getting more involved. And so I actually used my portfolio and called it Pusong Filipinx. And I want to connect with people more of my generation. And after that, my portfolio was kind of just there at a standstill as a website. And so last year, I really want to give back to the community, just seeing how I wasn't involved at all and not knowing where I could be in the community, to getting all these opportunities to connect and give back and help. I really want to do something to also give back in my own way. And so with Pusong Filipinx, I really want to start a market, just because I feel like, at least within my experience with everyday people that I've connected with in my outside work, they weren't as confident, or they were ashamed to be Filipino. And I want to create a space that gave them that opportunity to spark that pride for their identity. And with Pusong Filipinx, as I mentioned earlier, it's a market event. So everyone there is Filipino, all the creatives, all the business owners. And it was just a way to give that introduction. It's a little bit on the lighter end, and then essentially hope to give that inspiration for them to learn more. And I try after the first one to have a panel or some kind of teaching aspect to it, so that people can learn more about their identity in a fun way. So that's one way that I've been able to give back through my journalism and through Pusong Filipinx.
Yes, amazing. Thank you all for sharing so much. I think Lalaine kind of touched on this, but I guess a question I would love to pose is, why is it so important to build this community for Filipinos and Filipino Americans? Um, any thoughts, whether it's like creating a space for them to like know their identity, learn more? I would just love to hear from you guys.
Question. We have a lot to give to this world. When we think about what's going on collectively, not just through the pandemic or economically, what's going on, a lot of the challenges that we're facing as a human race are mostly interpersonal. How we connect with one another, how we relate to each other, how we take care of one another. And when I think about my Filipino roots and I think about the experiences that I have as a Filipino American, being born and raised in, but majority of my family is Filipino. I think about the values that was instilled in me and the things that I learned, and it allowed me to be I think, a decent person as I have grown up and with people all over the world. And even when I travel, I just feel like I inherently have all these values that I feel like are inherent in the Filipino values. And allow me to be a person that can interact and enjoy these relationships. And when I look into the world and see the challenges that we're facing, a lot of it is how can we relate to each other and how can we support each other? And these values feel these things, caring and wanting to support each other and being there when you can, and inherent because I don't know if anyone is watching, and many of you who may have been born and raised here in or outside of the Philippines, but born with family, and if you ever visit the Philippines and go back home, you get this welcoming feeling, even though you have never been there, and but you have that value inside because it travels, right? And that's one of the things about being a Filipino is that it's not just about if you speak the language or you look the part, but it's really how you take care of others and how you emit these values to other people. And so I feel blessed, and I think that's something that we should be super proud of, and we should continue to share. And I just think about all of these indigenous cultures around the world and all the challenges that we're facing right now and look to face into the future. It's these values that we need to keep moving forward.
I think you're muted.
But Addison, I think what you're saying is just nailing it 100%. We are in Hawaii. We are in a place where our diversity, our different cultures come together to form this beautiful place that everybody wants to come and visit, and a lot of people want to come and live. And so I think by reaching out to our Filipino community, reaching out to our friends, those who don't know us, I think reaching out to them and being able to empower or maybe even mentor or serve as an example to what they can do and give them again pathway. That's the word that I'm going to keep using, is the pathway to being involved in your community, being uh, being successful people, whatever your job may be, because I think at the end of the day, most of us want a couple of things. We want a good education, we want someplace good to live and call our own, and we want a good community that we can continue to raise the generations that are below us. I am I'm the third generation Filipino here. My grandfather was from Pangasinan, and I don't think when I was a little girl and he was trying to teach me his language, uh, I don't think he saw what we're doing now. I have sons that speak multiple languages, two dialects of Filipino being one of them, and we need to continue to foster that and to share that in our community so that we can become people who share what Filipinos are known for: our our caring, our generosity, our willingness to help each other, to make our communities, to make our cities better places for all of us to live in. So just being here on this panel empowers me like you wouldn't believe. I'm a Hawaiian music promoter. So I reach out to, started out for just traditional Hawaiian music because we wanted to use this way as a way to bring our community together. And at first, there were mostly Hawaiian. But now we've got this huge Filipino community that comes every month. Well, pre-pandemic, that would come out every month, and they couldn't believe that there were so many Filipino artists, Filipino people of Filipino ancestry that were playing Hawaiian music. And for me, that is a beautiful way to connect and support each other, to support our Filipino community, to support our Hawaiian communities, our Chinese communities, and to welcome those who may not be familiar with the generous spirits that we Filipinos have, with the caring spirit that we have to want to feed everybody that comes to our house, or feed everyone that comes to our events, or just say, hey, how are you? Welcome. So I think for us, this generation, we are so lucky to be able to be in a place where we can continue to nurture that and pass it on for generations to come.
And then if I could add to my TJ, and actually what Lalaine was saying about identity, I think it's very important for us to create community, because especially for youth and those Filipinos who are looking for identity or going through that identity struggle, right, that we all have gone through or are going through, these communities or these pockets of communities and these different sectors are very, they're healing, yeah. Just like what my TJ said, they're healing, they're reaffirming spaces, they reaffirm your identity, they're empowering, right? And so I think the existence of these communities, however small or big, or networks, and their ability to come together, I think it can take, a student or a young Filipino or Filipino from being, okay, I'm Filipino, to, okay, how do I be Filipino? And like when Addison said, how to be Filipino and successful, right? How to be Filipino and successful and take care of our own, not only at home, but then on the systemic level, how do we take care and address issues that pertain to our community, that affect our community? And so I think there's so much potential in building community or connecting networks, and then even more so for our youth who are struggling with that identity, and who might be in spaces or in education systems that aren't so reaffirming. Yeah.
Yeah, I just want to agree with everyone. It's like, why wouldn't we want to build community? Why wouldn't we want to raise awareness around our Filipino culture? Like so many of my counterpartners here, like we have so much to offer. And so why be ashamed of being Filipino? So that's my biggest thing is, growing up, I was so upset with the idea of being one of the few Filipinos in my hometown, and knowing that my mom moved to Hawaii, where there's a big Filipino community first, and my dad moved to San Francisco, where there's also a big Filipino community as well, and then end up in a small town in Washington. It was kind of just like, that was my goal, was just to continue to just build community and bring people together. And every time I heard someone be shamed to be Filipino, it's kind of like, why? What do you have to be ashamed about? So I think it's just really trying to bring out the best out of Filipinos and showcase the positivities and kind of change people's minds of like, there's nothing to be ashamed of.
Absolutely. I completely agree with all of the sentiments that you guys have expressed. Just like thinking about like what you guys have been saying, like this is like such a healing experience, like being able to build this community. I feel like, especially like having gone to college like on the mainland, I've lost that like sense of like having Filipinos around me. And I really like come to terms like how important it is to have like people that look like you, that understand your experience, to be with you, and to just be there saying like, you know, like you're not alone. And I just like thank you for like all your work and like for everything that you've been sharing. Another question that we have prepared is, what keeps you going to continue building community, even if you might not feel like the community is necessarily responding?
Question. I know it puts a lot of people on the spot, especially people who have run for office before or have run. It's an interesting experience when you try to bring the community together, and sometimes there's pockets of community that may not be able to respond or may not be able to come together. And it's part of the process of everyone is in a different space or in a space that they're still learning and growing. And for an expectation for, say, a community to respond is sometimes I think can be above the water of what we expect. But the process of reaching out and bringing people come together or bringing people together is actually really fun. If you're watching and you've never been a part of a community or an activity that brings people together, I highly suggest that you try it out because it really is rewarding. Just the act of bringing people together is one of the most exciting parts because one, you get to meet new people. New people, you get to have new experiences, and when you create new experiences, your life is just grows, right? It's one of those things where, as you kind of collect things in your life, if you try to collect more experiences, you kind of move towards a way of life that is more enjoyable and something that you can look forward to. And when you look at the times where, you know, for people who have tried to gather and have hit those challenges, communities don't respond, you have just to always remember and remind yourself that at one point someone tried to reach out to you and you weren't ready, and you weren't ready to jump in or be a part of whatever the cause was, or you just weren't aware of it, or you didn't have the opportunity to learn, or there was not enough time, or something was in the way. And if you can remember those things, you can remember that at some point someone will be ready, and you have just to think about that person and just keep going. Because that's what we're doing as a community through this organization, through what we're doing here on this conference. You know, we got 25 people engaged here watching. We got 5 panelists here. We got people from all over the world watching, and these are the people who are in front of you, and that's the people you serve. And I like to remind myself, running on Kauai, about 20 to 25% of the community is actually Filipino descendant. So we have a large community of Filipinos here on Kauai. We have location-based Filipinos. Our equivalent of Waipahu is Hanamalo on Kauai. The equivalent of Daly City in California, it would be Hanamalo. And it's interesting because when I ran for office, that was the place that I finished the greatest in. And so I know that people come out, but at the same time, you know, in the process of campaigning, it feels like no one is coming out. And so the reality is I also want to remind people, as you start trying to gather people and you start building community, you start bringing people around, and you're wondering why certain people don't come out, you just have to remember that at some point you didn't come out, and it just takes time for people to learn more, to enjoy the relationship, to find it fun and engage.
So nicely said, Addison. But it's true, because at one time, I'm sure I didn't want to do what I'm doing now, which is reaching out to our community and asking them, hey, what's going on? You know, how do you need, what kind of help do you need? And so I think just continuing to be that conduit or that liaison to our community and its needs and the services that are available, the love that our community has, our Filipino community has, and to want to keep that going. I have a 5-year-old grandson, and I want him to feel this right here. I want him to know that if he goes somewhere, whether it's a function, a Filipino function, or any other kind of function, that he's gonna take not only his food or his makana or his gifts to share, but he's gonna take his Filipino-ness. You know, so he will be able to share that I'm trying to think of the Filipino word, but it escapes me. But that aloha and that warmth for each other, that caring spirit that we as Filipino are so well known for. So we need to do our very best. And whether it be reaching out to somebody here in the panel, oh my goodness, my neighbor is bringing his excavator in to do work. So pardon the background noise. But we need to share and continue being involved with each other and finding out what are the needs of our community, what are the needs of the individuals in our community. Because you're right, I learned a lot more about our community and where they were seeking just that. I want to say that I'm sorry, my mind just went blank. But seeking that familiar feeling that you get when you are amongst family and friends, and finding that in the community, we need to continue to do that.
I think for me, even if my work isn't being, it's not receiving a great response as I would hope, just reminding myself, where were we as a Filipino community 10 years ago, 5 years ago? Just seeing how much we've grown as a community. As of late, we've received so much attention on media, just within the community in Hawaii. We're growing, I feel. And so just having those small reminders is reminding me to just keep going. I'm not sure if any of you have seen it, but the Disney organization in UK just came out with a Filipino Christmas short film. And I think that's huge. So I feel like despite our efforts, if it hasn't gone anywhere, seeing everywhere else globally, we are making a difference and we are growing and we're being represented better.
I'd like to add that I think all of us here aren't in the community work for that immediate response. We're in it because we're very passionate, and one of our purposes in life is to serve our community. And then again, with my teacher hat on, learning isn't always linear, right? Like Addison was saying, sometimes it takes a while, especially for our community. It takes a while to have it connect, to have it speak to our experiences at home or whatever it is that we experience. So I think keeping that in mind, that maybe today it doesn't make sense, but maybe next week it does, or down the line when they experience something, makes them go back and remember that one time you approached them and you offered help or you connected, what was I gonna say? I totally blanked out. But yeah, I think we're not in it for that immediate response. We're not in it for ego. We're in it because that's who we are. We are the community, So I think that's what keeps me going. And especially as a teacher, you're not always going to be 100%, effective. I wish we could be, but there's always going to be someone who's going to be not reachable at the moment. And then, as someone who's trying to build community, trying to serve community, you kind of have to take that and reassess and say, why didn't it work? Why isn't it connecting? And then you take that, you reassess and say, well, what can I do with that so that I can continue to serve, right? And so you're never not serving the community. You're never not successful. It's like being a teacher and thinking on your feet, right? Just reassess and you continue on.
Yes, I completely agree. And I think the biggest takeaway that from hearing all of you is the fact that you're not giving up. Even though there's no response, or maybe there's no response at the moment, the fact that you all keep on going to continue to build this community is so important. And the fact that you guys haven't give up, and the resilience and the determination to make this change and be there for the community, I think it just inspires more people to be a part of it, and also just keeps everyone wanting to meet each other, build a network, and all of that. It's also, I think we have 15, 20 minutes more. And I guess another question that I have for you all is, when did you learn to have an opinion and stand for that opinion?
That one's a fun one. Go, TJ. You got it.
Oh, no, it's okay. I think I learned at a really young age because on my paternal side, where my Filipino blood is, I am the second of 8 grandchildren. However, on my maternal side, which is my Hawaiian, Chinese, Irish, Tahitian side, I am the second of over 100 grandchildren and great grandchildren. And so I learned very young on both sides of the family that if I wanted to be heard or I wanted something, I needed to speak up. And believe it or not, I had a speech impairment when I was younger. And in the second grade, I had to go to speech therapy. While everybody was playing their second recess, I was sitting in the classroom with a speech therapist. And then while everybody was getting ready to go outside on the playground near the end of the day, I was learning how to speak. And in the third grade, I was considered advanced enough in my speech therapy class that I was entered in the Lions Club storytelling contest, which I won at the third grade. But I had to learn how to speak. I had a really bad lisp, and there were letter combinations that I couldn't speak. But aside from being one of the older ones in my family, I had to learn how to find my voice almost immediately because my family would make fun of me because of my lisp, and so there was a point where I didn't say anything. I was just there, and until I found my voice through therapy, through programs like the storytelling contest, I felt like I was nothing. But once I learned to speak, and I learned that if I listened before I spoke, I could be a contributing voice to the conversation and not just a voice. And so as I grew older, I kind of honed that skill to become, again, not just a voice, but a contributing voice in high school, at the college level, and even in some of the careers that I've had, where at one time I was the only female in an all male department. And I learned to, again, use my voice. And there was a point where I became the most successful person in that male dominated department, that male dominated field. So we have to, again, share that empowerment to speak, but also to care and to be generous in praise, and to empower and to uplift our Filipino community, because so many of them are afraid to, or maybe ashamed to speak up, not only because of their language barriers, but maybe because of the accent that they carry. Anyway, thank you very much again for allowing me to be part of this, and it's been tremendous. I've been watching the chats here. It's been just an uplifting moment to be able to share some of these experiences, and then also to take in some of the experiences that you folks are sharing with me as well. So thank you, Emily, and for everyone else that put this conference together.
So for me growing up, my dad always told me, you're not American, you're Filipino. You were just born in America, but that doesn't make you American. You need to remember that you're Filipino. And so he would always give me that talk every time I showed signs of assimilating to American culture. But of course, it's difficult. We're in America. And so going forward with that, I did everything that I could to be Filipino. And watching TFC one day, I saw the commercial of like Bantay Bata, seeing them all on the streets, not having a home, and just seeing the poorest of the poor in the Philippines in that commercial, and I was just so upset. I remember running into my room right after the commercial and crying because I was just like, how can people let this happen to kids? And I remember just from there on, I was like, I want to do something to make a difference in the Filipino community in the Philippines, whether it's big or small. And so as I got older, I started to see more and more that being Filipino in my hometown, there weren't people like me. And so I often, having that small girl, quiet type of personality, I was always being quiet, that people kind of dismissed me. And so I wanted to be someone that put my voice out there and also be a representative of other people who don't really have their voices heard. So that's essentially what led me to really wanting to do what I do now.
This is such a sensitive question, right? Because for Filipinos, it could be that we went through school systems where we were, maybe subtly taught that we shouldn't have an opinion, or our opinion doesn't matter. And so I kind of had to, I always had an opinion. We always did. We all always did. But somehow I had to learn that it was okay to have an opinion. And so if I think back, I think there are two events in my life that kind of pushed me to now I'm less very opinionated, but in high school, it was a mentor who pushed me and said, I think you should run for the state officer. It was like DECA or something like that, marketing club, but if they need a state officer, you should make a speech and go. And so that was kind of like the first big move where I was no longer, like Lalaine said, that Filipino quiet girl. Like I dared to get up behind a podium. And then the second significant event in my life would be when I joined this Anakbayan club at Manoa, where we were not only there to be Filipino, but we were Filipinos who dare to have or to want to have a say in politics, very, very, white male realm. And so the thought of even having something to say, having a response, to formulating a response, and then uttering the response, I think it happened over time. But those are the two significant times where I was kind of taught to realize you always had an opinion. It's okay for you to have an opinion. You should have an opinion. And thank you for allowing us here to have this platform. We can our voice and our opinion.
Yeah, I agree with everyone. I think if you're watching, you understand that you have an opinion and you always have. So whether or not you want to share that and in whatever medium or platform you choose to, and I guess the process of sharing your opinion is having a voice, and you can have a voice in different ways, and that's something that I learned throughout my life is that having a voice and having opinion doesn't necessarily always result in someone or you talking your opinion. It might be actions of what you do and how you do it, or things that you decide to join. For me, I didn't like talking. I almost failed my public speaking class in undergrad. I had opinions about things I could remember about thinking, so all of my life. And my first voice was actually music. I learned how to sing, and playing music was my first voice. And that was all of my high school, all of my elementary, in undergrad. My voice was writing, and I started writing. I wrote to my parents, I wrote to my family, I wrote to my friends. That was my voice. That was the way that I connected, how I shared my opinions. And it wasn't until grad school, until chiropractic, to going through the doctorate program, where I found my personal voice to speak the way that I am speaking to you now. Through learning how to speak, I had to take Toastmasters and speech classes because I was this local boy from Kauai who was talking in Pidgin, and being in the mainland for 10 years, you had to learn how to speak proper English because sometimes people don't fully understand you. So trying to voice in that. And so my thing is, when you think about having opinions, just really honor and respect it, and know that it's valuable regardless of what people think about it, and also know that there's many ways of sharing it. There's many different ways to voice your opinions, and knowing that it matters in all these realms. And I would suggest people who are watching, who are trying to learn about your opinion, your own personal opinion, how you want to share it. The best part about it is that there are people who you can look up to or look into that are sharing their voices in different ways, and it might not necessarily be in spaces that you might think. I found my voice, my writing voice, and my speaking voice through my great uncle, Bulosan. He's a writer, and he wrote the book America is in the Heart. And I actually found my Filipino voice through reading that book. And so sometimes it's one of those things where you can just connect with your ancestry and really understand that the voice is always there, the medium is always there, and also that the opinions are always there. And so you just have to find the way that you want to best express it.
Absolutely. Thank you all so much for sharing. And I completely agree. As like Filipinos, as Filipino Americans, as Filipinos who live in Hawaii, I think it's so important to have like our voices be heard and know that our voices are so important, because we as Filipinos have so much power. It's just the like being given the opportunity and like being given that like empowerment and pride to be able to say what's on their mind is so important. And I thank all of you so much for being a part of this conference and being part of the session. I think we have like a little bit more time. Does anybody have any like final like notes that they'd love to like say out, or anything that you'd like to say? Like, this is your time now.
Well, I would like to just encourage everyone to be part of your community. Find a way, whether it's with your voice or your actions, find a way to rock your Filipino. To get out there and show you're Filipino, and share that spirit, that Filipino spirit that we all know here on this panel, that we are so capable of having and of sharing, and be uplifting and empower each other, and find a way to serve, even if it's just in a little way. Find a way to be a positive influence or a mentor to someone else, maybe someone from the next generation or someone from 2 generations down. And if we continue to do that, like a seed that you plant, right? An okra seed, because okra grows everywhere, right? Plant that seed, add some fertilizer to it, pull a few weeds every now and again, and before you know it, you'll have okra coming out of your ears. And so that's what we want to do. We want to plant that seed of Filipino-ness, of caring spirit, generous spirit, and find your way to fertilize it, to take the bad things out from it, and then watch it flourish and help it flourish. So again, thank you for this conference. Thank you everyone for allowing me to share what I do. And Lalaine, anybody else on Oahu next week, Saturday? I'll be having a food truck event, and I know we're going to have Filipino food out there at the Dots parking lot in Wahiawa at 5 o'clock in the evening. It'll be lit up with 5,000 watts of electricity. So come out and come and introduce yourself to me. Come say hello and share some of your Filipino with me.
I love that. I will try my best to go to that, TJ. I just want to say thank you for having me on this panel, for having all of us on this panel. I shared this with Anna before, that it's actually on my bucket list to be on a panel this year. So I'm just grateful that it finally happened. But, just thinking about my own experience, I tried so hard to fit in Hawaii that I kind of lost sight of why I moved here in the first place. So for those who are trying to find community and try to build something out of themselves, really hone in on what makes you you. What makes you passionate? What sparks that fire in you, and focus on that. And surely enough, like with momentum, it will grow and you will see results. Just, like I said, just stay true to yourself and remember to always remember your roots. Remember what it means to be Filipino, because at the end of the day, you can't change that.
Go get them, Debbie.
I guess my one last thing I want to close out with everyone who's joining us, who's going to watch this back, is aside from being thankful for all the panelists and the organizers, we appreciate you guys for making this possible. I would have to just say, our topic is community and coming together. Community and coming together doesn't happen unless two things happen. One, you have to be okay with being uncomfortable, because that's part of the deal. Sometimes you got to reach out for help, or you got to want to help someone, and that can be uncomfortable. So you got to be okay with being uncomfortable. And then the second thing is you got to actually do something. You got to reach out, you got to call someone, you text someone, you show up at an event. You have to there's action behind the words, there's action behind the process. And that's how we are as Filipinos. We have a lot of action lives, and we're totally fine with being uncomfortable, especially about singing karaoke in front of everyone. That's normal for us. But we're also uncomfortable in the sense that we are willing to step into the challenges and really help when it's needed. So it doesn't happen unless we're ready to be uncomfortable and ready to take action. So hats off to the organizers and everyone who has become uncomfortable and joined us here and taken action and being part of this, and really appreciate it. And I hope I get to work with all of you in some capacity at some point in this future.
I'm going to find you when I'm on Kauai again, Addison.
And I think I can take it home with that and say, like Lalaine said, follow your passion, follow your desire, and remember that things happen when community comes together. Yeah, not only for the community as a whole, but things happen for you when you connect with other people. People connect you to other people, and all sorts of great things happen. So when you wanna stay in, when you don't wanna choose to not get involved, that's okay. But there's gonna be that time when you're gonna want to grow and get uncomfortable, and further that passion. So the community will be here and will still be going for it. So
Yes, thank you so much for the closing ceremony. We will be heading to the stage tab for anybody who's watching. I just want to thank you all again so much for sharing all your knowledge and all your experience, and I really enjoyed having this, and I hope to see you guys soon, and hope you all are doing well and staying safe.